So yeah, when things are like that, right? When you're like 1 or 2 steps to your goal or whatever you were trying to accomplish, and now it seems like not just new problems arise, because who cares? You're human. You already dealt with problems. You know the psychology of a problem. Get rid of it. Okay. Why don't you just do the same thing here? Why don't you just try to get rid of these problems? You know why? You know why you don't try to get rid of these newer problems? They're not always bigger. They just seem, usually they're bigger, yeah. They're just not always a quantity. They're not always a lot. It just be one big one. Why don't you try to treat them the same way you treated the first problems that arose that you obviously got rid of? Why don't you use the psychology, right, that you fought with those ones and they disappeared, to then do the same to this and just have confidence that you'll be fine again? One, because of the time, right? You're tired by now. You're worn out. You're thinking, what the hell? Well, that person was like, let's go. I'm ready to fight this time. Okay, then 2, exactly, the problems might obviously be bigger this time. They may not just be the same ones. Okay, so then it's defeating psychologically to you. You think you're defeated by this. You know that's not who you are. You know, as human beings, we never ever tell ourselves we're weak, right? We never tell ourselves we can't do something. Of course, we know we're strong. But when the problem is in your face, what do we all feel? That, we can't do this, correct? I told you feelings that are bad are always witchcraft. If it was just demons that we cannot see, that are just sending us thoughts, because I told you they just have the low-level power to just whisper to everyone God creates. That's it. But why is this type of thought or feeling stronger than the other type of thoughts you usually get? Right? That then would cause someone to say, oh no, I'm not just getting negative, typical low-level type of thoughts. I'm really struggling. Why do people differentiate it, even though they're all thoughts? You know, even if one seems like an emotion, it's still a thought, right? The emotion is still coming from a place of a thought telling you something, right? Like, oh, you can't do this. Okay, then the emotion of despair, depression, rage, whatever. People ask you to describe how you're feeling. I feel this. I feel like I'm doomed. I can't do this. Okay, but then when they ask you to describe the feeling, you're going to describe it using what? Emotions? You're not going to be like, this part of my heart feels this. You're not going to describe it like that. You're going to describe it by telling them what. You're not going to use the word thought, but when you describe it, because people ask you to describe the feeling, it still seems like thoughts is what caused the feeling, correct? Because you're going to be like, it told me I can't do this. Or you're not maybe going to say it. You're going to be like, I don't think this is going to work out. I don't think this is my destiny. It still seems like a thought, right? That came to you saying, hey, this is not your destiny. Hey, you cannot defeat this. Hey, God is crazy. Hey, he's not going to help you. It's still like a thought, which then we could also say it's like a voice, because a voice could have a voice, right? Because it's a living thing. Demons are living. They're the voice. The voice would also talk to you just like I described the thought, right? It's just there are times people just say thoughts, and there are times people say, voice said it to me, you know? Either way, it's the same. Because a thought has to come from a voice too, correct? Because thoughts can't come from nowhere. They have a source. It's just humans who are not connected to religion are sadly going to be the only ones to connect thoughts to just, right, nowhere. And they might connect voices to mental illness, you know? And maybe at some point they might agree a voice could be a demon. Okay. Because, right, maybe they think a thought and a voice, there's too much difference between them. So then they might agree that a voice could be a demon. But they may not think a thought is also a demon. You get me? Because they think a thought is more like just comes from nowhere. It cannot come from nowhere. Because we, the creation, the human, we did not come from nowhere. You get me? If the creation did not come from nowhere, God created us. Okay, then it's the same for thoughts and voices and everything. They also came from something. They came from a living being that we just can't see. And those living beings were created by God. So we all, right? We didn't come from God, but we would say he created us. He brought us here. You know, we wouldn't be like we came out of nowhere. Sadly, that's what humans who try to understand life would say, because they're not connected to religion, or maybe they don't want to believe in it. Sadly, they would be the ones to be like, right, that the human race came from apes. And some might be like, no, we came from dinosaurs. And some might be like, no, we came out of nowhere. Big Bang. You get me? But if someone was to observe thoughts, they would realize it's like a living thing. It seems to have a personality, a consciousness. You get me? It seems to have like a life in it. We just can't see it. And they might agree that it's a demon. Or maybe not a demon, but something else that's living but invisible. Okay. And then they might agree to then maybe listen to the religious perspective. You get me? Because it already has that type of mentality that there's something invisible out there that puts their thoughts into our head. Sometimes it can come out of the thought, and sometimes it can come out as a voice. You might be like, how do they do that? Basically, they're always using their voice, right? They're like you and I. They have a mouth. They have a voice. They talk. It's just that it's up to them. When they just whisper to our ears, it just comes to our brain as a thought. Because it first goes through spiritual ways to reach us. You get me? Because we can't see them. So it's like spiritual. The fact that we can hear them is not physical, because they're not physical. They don't have a body. Okay, but then when we hear a voice, they're using witchcraft. But all of us get thoughts, right? You know why? Because all of us have a demon with us and an angel with us. The angels don't talk to us, demons do. So that natural level, right, that low level power they just have from God to just whisper to our ears, that's always going to be a thought. Then when it comes to our consciousness, we become conscious of it, you know? Because you may not be conscious of thoughts sometimes. Okay, but then when you're hearing voices, that's when they're actually using witchcraft, or they're possessing you. So it's very rare for it to be a voice unless you're possessed. You get me? So then who usually hears voices? Mentally ill people, right? Regular people would say, I have thought. They don't really say, I hear a voice. That's because you got possessed if you actually started to hear a voice. You know why? Because what did I say? The natural level is for you to hear a thought, correct? Possessed or not. They're just whispering to us either way. Okay, you're not doing anything. You get me? They just have that power from God. Okay, voice means, okay, they possessed you. So because they just had the ability to whisper to you, they're not going to have that power differently over someone who's possessed or not. You know, whether you're possessed or not, they're just going to have the power to whisper to you. Okay, so you get me? It doesn't matter how close you are to God, we're all going to get thoughts. Okay. But then the whole reason they want to possess people is that now, because they're in your body spiritually, right? I know something living can't enter your body, but spiritually they enter your body. Get it? Because they don't have a body. So spiritually they enter your body, right? Okay, so because of that, now their voice, think of it as their mouth, right? Their mouth is very close to your body. Do you agree? Because they're in your body. Okay, so for that reason, you're going to hear their actual mouth talking to you. Much louder now in your ears. No longer thoughts now? Because they're possessing you, right? Now it's going to be a voice. Okay, but then they still have the power to still send you thoughts. You get me? Just because they possess you doesn't mean they lost the ability to send you thoughts, and now all they have the power to do is to send you a voice. No, they still have the just typical low-level power to keep sending you thoughts, which just means whisper to the person, you get me? And they can still possess the person and also now directly talk to them. Hey, you. And now you're going to be like, oh, what did I just hear? It feels like you actually heard something inside your head, actually in your head, like a living person inside your head. And you know why? You know why that's possible? That the one that whispers to you is still doing that, and the one that's possessing you is able to have a voice? Because they can't multitask. It's because the one that's whispering to you, it's always going to be with you. It's probably not the one who possesses you. Because their whole job is to be with a human until they die. So their job is just to whisper. Okay, so they're probably not the one who possessed you. Another demon probably possessed you, and that's the one you're hearing their voice. You see, that's why you hear once in a while. People don't hear voice 24/7, but they hear thoughts 24/7. Unless they're not paying attention to their mind, right? Because they're just always happening. The thoughts are always in your head. You just may not be aware of it because you're not paying attention to your mind, right? You're distracted, busy. So you get me? This is how religion can then be believed, at least the way Islam describes it, because Christianity doesn't know demons are with you like this. You can at least believe in this, right? I'm not saying you have to, right? God gave you free will, but if you want to use your mind, you could at least agree with it. That's a very good analysis. That the one that is not possessing you, but they're just always with you, good or bad person, connected to God or not, possessed or not, okay, they're always going to be there until you die. Then they're going to go to another human who was born. There you go. So they can keep sending you thoughts because that's how they're sending you thoughts. They're just like you and I, if we were to stand shoulder to shoulder. They're just shoulder to shoulder with you, just irritating your ears with their voice. They're talking to you, but you're not gonna see that, right? Because they're invisible. So it becomes a thought. God doesn't want you to hear the voice from this one, because it would actually traumatize all of us. We would all get sick, especially since we're kids, right? As kids, we obviously get thoughts. So when you're an adult, maybe you can handle it, but as a kid, you can't. So God is not going to give them this power to make their thought a voice when you're so young, because it's not healthy. So they're just always going to be stuck at a thought level. You get me? They're still talking to you. They have a mouth. They're talking. They have a voice, but it's going to transfer to you as a thought. But the one possessing you has a choice, right, to send you that voice. Okay, but if you're not possessed like me, the only way they can make me hear a voice is just going to be easy to stop it. They cannot have this power too long. It might be like once. Is if they do dark powers like witchcraft. You know? It's the only time it seems like a voice. But again, I told you, it's not the voice that mentally ill people hear. It's another one. It's like a lower level. It's like a thought, but just made louder. While people who actually hear voices are probably hearing it like you and I looking at each other. Very loud, I'm sure. Very, very harmful. So let's give them 3 levels, you know?